I stood in the hospital hallway, the smell of disinfectant burning my nose and the sound of monitors beeping somewhere behind me. My hands were shaking so hard that my phone almost slipped from my grip. I had just lost my baby again. My third miscarriage. My body felt empty, my heart even more so. The nurse looked at me with soft eyes and said, "We can't proceed with the emergency surgery unless your parents sign the consent, sweetheart." So I called Dad. My voice cracked as I told him I was bleeding heavily, and the doctors said it was urgent. There was a long pause on the line. Then the sharp buzz of a text message came through. It said, "Can't this wait? We're busy." For a second, I thought I'd misread it. Busy? They were busy while I was lying on a hospital bed, losing the only thing that made me feel like life still had meaning. I stared at the message until my tears blurred the screen. 3 weeks later, I showed up at their house, not with tears, not with apologies, but with papers. Papers that would change everything. But before I tell you what those papers were, you need to understand how we got here. Hello everyone. Welcome to today's video. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Who knows, you might just get a shout out in our next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you love stories that remind you how powerful karma can be. My name's Vivian, I'm 28, and this story takes place in Oregon, where I grew up in a quiet suburb with my parents, Stephen and Abigail, and my younger sister, Angela. We looked like the perfect family on the outside. Sunday church, smiling Christmas cards, the whole picture-perfect thing. But behind the smiles, my parents were cold. Not physically abusive, not yelling all the time, just cold in ways that make you question your worth. When I was a kid, if I fell and scraped my knee, Dad would say, "You shouldn't have been running." Mom would add, "Stop crying, Vivian, it's not that bad." By the time I was 12, I learned to stop asking for comfort. Then, I met Joshua in college. He was kind, funny, and he made me feel seen in a way I hadn't before. We got married after 3 years of dating. We wanted kids right away. The first pregnancy ended at 10 weeks. The second at 15. By the time I got pregnant the third time, I told myself not to get too excited, but how can you not when you see that heartbeat flickering on the monitor? Joshua held my hand every night, whispering, "Third time's the charm, Viv." But one rainy evening, everything changed. I was driving home from work when a pickup truck ran a red light and slammed into the side of my car. The sound of crunching metal, the glass shattering, it still echoes in my head. I remember the pain in my stomach, the screaming, the sirens. At the hospital, I kept asking about the baby. The doctor avoided my eyes. "We're doing everything we can," he said. They needed someone to sign the consent forms for emergency surgery because my blood pressure had crashed. Joshua was out of town for a work trip. He was on the next flight back, but it would take hours. My parents were my only emergency contacts. When I called them, I expected panic. I expected fear. I expected love. Instead, I got that text. "Can't this wait? We're busy." I couldn't even believe it. I stared at my phone, numb. The nurse asked if there was anyone else. My mind raced, and then I thought of Grandma. Grandma Abigail's mom, Mrs. Charlotte, lived about 40 minutes away. I called her, sobbing, barely able to get the words out. She didn't even hesitate. "Hold on, sweetheart. I'm coming." She was there faster than anyone expected, clutching her coat and her purse, her hair in a mess but her eyes fierce. She signed the papers without a second thought. I woke up after the surgery to find Grandma holding my hand. She whispered, "You're safe now, baby. You're safe." But the baby wasn't. The emptiness that followed was like a black hole. Joshua came as soon as he could, his eyes red from crying. He kept saying it wasn't my fault, but I couldn't believe him. And through it all, silence from my parents. No visits, no texts, not even a call to check if I was alive. When Grandma found out, she was furious. She called my father, shouting so loud I could hear her through the phone. "She could have died. Stephen, your daughter could have died." I heard him sigh. "Mom, I told you, we were in the middle of something important. She's fine now, isn't she?" That was the moment something inside me broke. A week after I got discharged, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the wall. Joshua was trying to get me to eat soup, but I couldn't even taste it. Grandma sat across from me, knitting something pink and soft. You need to rest, she said gently. But you also need to stop letting them hurt you. What do you mean? I asked. She looked at me, her eyes sharp with that old wisdom. Sometimes, family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when you bleed. That hit me. That night, I sat up until dawn, reading through old paperwork. My parents had always controlled my finances. When I got married, they said it would be easier to keep some of my assets under the family trust. I'd been too naive to understand what that meant. Now, sitting there, I began to see how deep their control ran, and how easy it would be to cut that cord. Guilt trip call to action number 1. If you've ever had someone make you feel small for asking for love, please don't stay quiet. Share your story. You never know who you might be helping by speaking up. Over the next 3 weeks, Grandma helped me make calls, meet with a lawyer, and gather documents. Joshua was right by my side the whole time. Every time I looked at him, I felt both heartbreak and strength. And then, finally, everything was ready. 3 weeks to the day after I lost my baby, I got dressed, put on a calm face, and drove to my parents' house. It was a bright Sunday morning. The same house I grew up in looked smaller now, colder. When Dad opened the door, he looked annoyed. Vivian, what are you doing here? Just came to drop something off, I said, my voice steady. He frowned, confused, as I handed him a thick envelope. Mom appeared behind him, arms crossed. What's this? I smiled faintly. You'll see. And with that, I turned around, walked down the porch steps, and got into my car. They didn't know it yet, but those papers were about to change everything. I could still feel my heartbeat pounding in my chest as I drove away from their house. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel, but my face stayed calm. I had rehearsed this moment 100 times in my head, and now it was finally real. Those papers, the ones I'd handed to my parents so casually, contained everything they'd spent decades controlling. And in one signature, I'd taken it all back. I didn't look in the rearview mirror as I left. I didn't need to. I knew the moment they opened that envelope, their world would stop spinning the way it always had. Inside was a packet of legal documents. A formal notice that I was removing their names as trustees from the family account. A revocation of power of attorney, so they could no longer control my finances. A property transfer form, signed and notarized, that moved ownership of the family vacation home in Oregon entirely to me. A home they'd claimed was technically theirs for years. And finally, a short letter, typed neatly at the end, that said, "You didn't show up when I needed you most. So please, don't show up for me again." For 3 weeks leading up to that moment, every second of my day was filled with quiet determination. It started the night after the hospital, when Grandma made me a cup of chamomile tea and sat me down with her lawyer, Mr. Igor Barnes, a retired but sharp-minded attorney who'd been her friend for decades. "Vivian," he said, adjusting his glasses, "your parents have had control over your trust and assets since you were a teenager, correct?" I nodded. "They said it was just to protect me until I got married." He gave a knowing smirk. "I've heard that one before. But you're married now. And after what they did, you're well within your rights to sever every legal tie." Joshua sat beside me, holding my hand. "We just want peace," he said. Igor chuckled softly. "Peace sometimes comes through paperwork, son." We started drafting everything that night. Igor explained every clause and signature, every formality. Grandma made us sandwiches and stayed up with us, her knitting needles tapping rhythmically on the table. "Your father may try to contest it," she warned, but I raised him. "He doesn't fight well when he's wrong." I smiled at that. It was the first time I'd smiled in weeks. As the days passed, I began to feel pieces of myself returning. I started journaling again, walking outside, even laughing sometimes when Joshua told one of his corny jokes. But there were still nights I'd wake up crying, clutching my stomach, the loss washing over me all over again. One night, I found myself sitting in the nursery we'd started decorating, the one that would now stay empty. The pale yellow walls seemed to mock me. I stared at the tiny mobile hanging from the ceiling, a soft melody playing from its wind-up key. Joshua came in quietly and sat beside me. "You don't have to keep punishing yourself, Viv," he whispered. "I'm not," I said, though my voice broke. "I'm punishing them." He didn't argue. He just wrapped his arm around me, and we stayed that way until morning. The day I went to the courthouse to finalize the paperwork, I wore a navy blue blazer and my grandmother's pearl earrings. I walked into that building not as the broken daughter they'd made me feel like, but as someone who finally understood her own worth. When the clerk stamped the last page and slid the folder back to me, my hands didn't shake. For the first time in a long time, I felt steady. Grandma smiled proudly. That's my girl. Guilt trip call to action number 2. If you've ever had someone make you question your value, remember, you don't owe loyalty to people who only show up when it benefits them. Protect your peace, even if it hurts. Back in the present, as I drove away from my parents' house that Sunday, my phone buzzed nonstop. Text after text from Mom, from Dad, from Angela. Mom, Vivian, what is this? What did you do? Dad, call me right now. We need to fix this. Angela, what's happening? Dad's yelling at everyone. I didn't answer any of them. I pulled over to the side of the road, took a deep breath, and turned my phone off. Joshua had planned a quiet evening for us back home. Takeout, candles, and one of our favorite movies. But before I could even take off my coat, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, Grandma was standing there holding a small box. Your father dropped this off, she said, handing it to me. Said it belonged to you. Inside the box were photos, childhood ones. Me in my first school uniform, me holding a science fair ribbon, family Christmas pictures. But taped to the top was a note in Dad's handwriting. Don't do this, Viv. You'll regret it. My heart skipped a beat. The tone wasn't angry. It was threatening. That night, Joshua and I talked about it for hours. What if they try to take legal action? I asked. He shrugged. Then we fight. You did everything by the book. Still, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way my dad's face looked the last time I saw him. Blank, almost cold. Like someone planning something. 3 days passed. No word from them. Then on the 4th day, I came home from work to find a car parked across the street. A black sedan I didn't recognize. Inside, 2 men sat quietly, pretending not to stare. At first, I brushed it off as paranoia. But later that night, when I took the trash out, I saw the same car again. Same men. This time, the engine was still running. I called Joshua. Something's not right, I whispered. He came outside, but the car sped off before he got close enough to see the plate. The next morning, Grandma called me, furious. Your father showed up at my house last night, she said. He was shouting about you. Said you embarrassed him. I froze. Did he do anything? No, she said. But he said something that scared me. He said, she doesn't understand what she started. I wanted to believe he was bluffing. But the following week, strange things started happening. My car tires were slashed in the driveway. A letter was stuffed under our front door. Blank, except for the words, undo it. Joshua filed a police report, and they promised to look into it, but I could tell they didn't take it seriously. Probably a prank, one officer said. But I knew better. Dad had lost control, and for men like him, control was everything. Guilt trip call to action number 3. If you're listening to this and you've ever had a parent, partner, or friend who used fear to keep you quiet, I want you to know. Standing up for yourself isn't disrespect. It's survival. One night, about 2 weeks later, I came home to find the front doors slightly open. Joshua wasn't home yet. My stomach dropped. Hello. I called out. No answer. I grabbed a flashlight from the drawer and stepped inside. The living room lights were off. Everything looked normal, except for the picture frame on the coffee table. It was our wedding photo. The glass was cracked. And right next to it on the table was one of those family photos my dad had sent back. The one from Christmas, with a red X drawn across my face in marker. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't about money anymore. This was war. I backed away slowly, grabbed my phone, and called Joshua. Don't come home, I whispered. Call the police. Someone's been here. Within minutes, flashing lights lit up the street. The officers swept through the house. Nothing was stolen, nothing was damaged, except for that photo. One of the cops, a young guy named Officer Ben, looked at me and said, Ma'am, whoever did this wanted to scare you. Well, it worked. Joshua put his arm around me, but my body was stiff. It's them, I said quietly. It's my parents. He didn't say anything, but the look in his eyes told me he believed it too. The next morning, Grandma called again, her voice shaking this time. Vivian, you need to be careful. Your father's been asking around. He's angry, but he's desperate too. What does that mean? I asked. He's trying to undo the paperwork, she said. He went to Igor's office. I froze. What did Igor say? Nothing. He kicked him out. I exhaled, my pulse racing. Good. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. That night, Joshua and I sat in the living room, holding hands in silence. The air felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. He finally spoke. You did the right thing, Viv. I know, I said softly. But right doesn't always mean safe. We turned off the lights and went to bed early. But my mind refused to rest. I kept replaying everything. The accident, the hospital, that text message. Can't this wait? We're busy. And then I thought of Grandma's words. Sometimes, family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when you bleed. I realized I had bled enough for them. Still, as I lay there in the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was outside again. The next sound I heard confirmed it, a loud crash from the porch, followed by the shatter of glass. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, and screamed, Joshua. The crash echoed through the house like a thunderclap. I bolted upright, heart hammering in my chest. For a second, I thought I dreamed it. Then I heard Joshua shout from the hallway, Viv, stay in the room. The sound of footsteps pounded against the wooden porch. A second crash followed, glass shattering, then the hollow thud of something hitting the floor. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. There's someone outside my house, I whispered. They broke something. I think they're trying to get in. The dispatcher's voice was calm. Ma'am, stay on the line. Officers are on their way. Is anyone else with you? My husband, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Joshua was already by the bedroom door, holding the old baseball bat he kept by the dresser. Lock the door, he whispered. I did. My hands were slick with sweat, and every sound in the house felt amplified. The creak of the floorboards, the rustle of the curtains. Then came the voice. Vivian. A deep, familiar voice called from the living room. My blood ran cold. It was Dad. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My mind was spinning. How did he even get here? And why was he breaking in at midnight? Joshua's eyes met mine. He mouthed, don't open the door. The dispatcher was still on the line. Ma'am, do you know the person? Yes, I whispered. It's my father. There was a pause. Stay where you are. Officers are minutes away. But Dad didn't sound like himself. His voice was loud, slurred, and angry. You think you can take everything from me? From your family? I could hear him stumbling through the house, knocking over furniture. My stomach clenched when I heard the unmistakable sound of glass crunching under his shoes. He'd smashed the porch light to get in. Joshua tightened his grip on the bat. I'm going out there, he said. No, don't. I grabbed his arm. He's drunk. Or worse. Just wait for the police. But Joshua shook his head. If he gets near you, I'll never forgive myself. Before I could stop him, he opened the bedroom door and stepped into the hallway. Stephen, he shouted, you need to leave. For a moment, there was silence. Then Dad's voice boomed, closer this time. You don't tell me what to do in my daughter's house. It's our house, Joshua said firmly, and you're trespassing. There was a crash, something heavy falling, followed by a loud grunt. Joshua! I screamed, fumbling with the lock. When I finally got the door open, I saw them both at the bottom of the stairs, Joshua standing firm, Dad swaying, a broken picture frame between them. Dad pointed a trembling finger at me. You've gone too far, Vivian. You think cutting me off makes you free? You're still my daughter. You'll always owe me. I could see the wildness in his eyes, the bitterness twisting his face. He reeked of whiskey. Dad, I said softly, stepping forward. Please, just go home. We can talk tomorrow. But he laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. Talk? You want to talk after what you did? After you humiliated us? Everyone's talking about it, Vivian. You made us look like fools. Joshua moved slightly in front of me, his voice calm but firm. You need to leave before this gets worse. Dad's gaze flickered to him, then back to me. You let him fill your head with lies. You think you're strong now. You're nothing without us. Nothing. I opened my mouth to respond, but that's when the red and blue lights flashed through the window. Police, a voice shouted from outside. Hands where we can see them. Dad froze. For a moment, I thought he might run, but instead, he stumbled backward toward the door, mumbling, "You called the cops on your own father." The officers burst through the entryway, flashlights cutting through the darkness. "Sir, step away from them." Dad raised his hand slowly, muttering curses under his breath. One of the officers gently guided me toward the kitchen. "Are you okay, ma'am? Any injuries?" I shook my head numbly. "No, but he broke in. He's been threatening us for weeks." Joshua gave his statement too, and within minutes, they were leading Dad out in handcuffs. His eyes met mine one last time. They weren't angry anymore. They were cold. "This isn't over," he said quietly. The door shut behind him. When the officers finally left, the silence in the house was suffocating. Joshua sat on the couch, his hands covering his face. "Your own father," he muttered. "I can't believe this." I sat beside him, staring at the broken picture frame on the floor. It was the one from our wedding day. The glass shattered right over our smiling faces. "I should have seen it coming," I whispered. "He's never lost control before." But I took away the one thing that mattered to him: control. Joshua turned to me. "You didn't do anything wrong, Viv." He did. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But somewhere deep down, guilt started to creep in, like a shadow whispering, "You pushed him too far." The next morning, I got a call from Grandma. She already knew. "He called me from the station," she said. "Begged me to bail him out." "Please don't," I said quickly. "He needs to understand what he did." She sighed heavily. "I didn't. But Vivian, this will only make him angrier. You need to be careful." "I'm done being scared," I said. "He chose this." But part of me wondered if she was right. 2 days later, I went to pick up groceries, trying to do something. Anything normal. I kept my head down, hoping no one in town had seen the flashing lights outside my house. But as I reached for a bag of apples, I heard someone whisper, "That's her." The one who had her dad arrested. I turned, and sure enough, 2 women from church were standing a few feet away, pretending not to stare. My throat tightened. Word had already spread. When I got home, Joshua was waiting at the kitchen table, his laptop open. "Viv," he said slowly, "you need to see this." He turned the screen toward me. It was a Facebook post from my mother. "It breaks my heart to see our daughter turn against her own family. We raised her with love, gave her everything, and now she's destroying us for money. Please pray for us." There were hundreds of comments. People I grew up with, old neighbors, some offering sympathy, others judging me without knowing the truth. I felt sick. "She's turning everyone against me," I whispered. Joshua clenched his jaw. "Then we'll tell the truth." But the truth, I realized, didn't matter to people who'd already picked a side. Guilt trip call to action number 4. If you've ever been painted as the villain for finally standing up for yourself, don't back down. People will twist your story to protect their comfort, but your peace is worth more than their approval. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I scrolled through every cruel comment online until my eyes blurred. Words like ungrateful, selfish, heartless. Joshua finally took my phone. "Stop torturing yourself," he said. "You know the truth." I nodded, but the words burned anyway. The next morning, I went to the porch to get the mail. There was a single envelope, no return address. My name typed neatly on the front. Inside was a short note. "You ruined everything. I hope it was worth it." No signature, but I didn't need one. As I stood there holding the note, a cold wind whipped through the yard, rustling the trees. I looked up and saw a car parked at the end of the street. Not the same black sedan as before. This one was white, but the way it lingered watching, it made my skin crawl. I went back inside and locked the door. Joshua saw my face and frowned. "What is it?" I handed him the note silently. He read it, then looked toward the window. "Viv," he said quietly, "we might need to get security cameras." I nodded, my stomach twisting, because something told me this wasn't over, not by a long shot. That night I sat in the living room with every light on, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the house. Joshua was asleep on the couch, exhausted, but my mind wouldn't stop spinning. I kept hearing my father's voice, "You'll always owe me." Around 2 a.m., I opened my laptop and started typing. Not to my parents, to the world. I wrote a post, not a rant, not a sob story, just the truth. I explained what had happened in the hospital, the text message that said, "Can't this wait? We're busy," how my grandmother had to sign for my surgery because my parents wouldn't come. I attached screenshots, copies of police reports, and the Facebook post my mother had made. I ended it with one sentence. Family doesn't mean loyalty, love does. I hesitated before hitting post. Once I did, there'd be no going back. But I hit it anyway. By morning, the post had gone viral in the local community. Hundreds of comments poured in, strangers offering comfort, others sharing their own stories of toxic families. Some even recognized my mom's post and called her out publicly. Joshua read a few aloud, shaking his head. People are finally seeing the truth. I wanted to feel vindicated, but all I felt was tired. Years of silence and guilt had drained me dry. Then my phone rang. It was Grandma. "Vivian," she said breathlessly, "your mother's losing it. She called me screaming about your post. Said you humiliated her in front of the whole town." "She humiliated herself," I said quietly. "I know that, sweetheart. But she's saying they're going to sue you for defamation." I actually laughed. "For telling the truth? Your father's reputation means everything to him," she warned. "He's already been suspended from the Rotary Club." "Good," I muttered. "Maybe next they'll suspend his conscience." A few days later, Joshua and I met with Igor, the lawyer, to discuss next steps. He was calm as ever, sipping coffee in his office lined with law books. "They have no case," he said. "Everything you've shared is verifiable. But I'd prepare for a smear campaign." He wasn't wrong. Within a week, fake rumors started spreading online. Claims that Joshua had stolen money from my dad's business, that I'd forged the property documents. My mother even went on a local talk radio show, crying about her betrayed family. Grandma called again, furious. "Abigail is telling anyone who'll listen that you stole from them." I told her she was out of her mind. I sighed. They're panicking because they're losing control. Still, the noise got louder. Reporters called. Neighbors stared. People whispered when I walked into stores. One afternoon, as I stood in line at the post office, a woman behind me said under her breath, "There's the girl who sued her parents." I turned around and said, "No. There's the woman who stopped being controlled by them." The line went silent. For the first time, I didn't shrink, I stood tall. That evening, Grandma came over for dinner. She brought lasagna and her usual warmth, but I could see the worry in her eyes. "Vivian," she said gently, "this has gone beyond pride. Stephen's furious. He's blaming everyone. He's even started drinking more." I looked down at my plate. "He made his choices, Grandma." "I know," she said softly, "but don't let his hate poison you. Revenge is powerful, but peace lasts longer." I nodded, but deep inside, I wasn't done. Not yet. Because a week later, I got a call from a woman named Renee, a journalist from Portland. "I've been following your story," she said. "Would you be willing to go on record? People deserve to hear what really happened." Joshua squeezed my hand. "Do it," he said. So I did. I told everything: the hospital, the neglect, the years of emotional manipulation, the way they cared more about image than their own child's life. When the article was published, it spread like wildfire. The headline read, "Can't this wait? We're busy. Daughter exposes parents' heartless reaction after tragedy." By noon, the story was trending statewide. The fallout was immediate. My father's small business started losing clients. My mother's social circle collapsed overnight. People who once praised them crossed the street to avoid them. For once, the silence was on their side. Joshua hugged me, whispering, "It's over." But it wasn't. Because that night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You think you won? You have no idea what you've started." I showed it to Joshua. "It's him again." He frowned. "We should change numbers. Maybe even move." But I shook my head. "No. If he wants to play dirty, I'll shine every light I can on him." So I posted that message too. Screenshot, captioned, "When abusers lose control, they threaten you. When survivors take control, they expose them." The post exploded. Support poured in, thousands of comments, messages, even offers for interviews. It felt like the entire weight of my past was lifting, piece by piece. 2 nights later, I was sitting on the porch with Grandma. She'd come to stay for a few days, just in case. The autumn air was cool, and the stars were sharp against the black sky. She took my hand. "You did good, sweetheart. You spoke your truth. Don't let hate be the ending." I looked at her and said quietly, "I don't hate them anymore. I just don't want them to hurt anyone else." She smiled. "That's my girl." For the first time in months, I felt calm. But that peace lasted less than a day. The next morning, I woke up to Joshua shaking me awake. "Viv, turn on the TV." The local news was showing police cars outside my parents' house. A reporter's voice echoed, "Stephen and Abigail Miller are under investigation for financial misconduct tied to family trust funds." My jaw dropped. "What, how?" Joshua turned to me. "Did you tell anyone about the accounts?" "No," I said slowly. "But Igor had the paperwork. Everything was legitimate." Then my phone buzzed again, this time from Igor himself. "Vivian," he said, his tone serious, "I think your father tried to move money from the trust after the transfer. The bank flagged it. The police are involved." My heart pounded. So this wasn't just revenge. "It's criminal." "Looks that way," he said. "And you, my dear, may have just saved yourself a lifetime of financial theft." By evening, the story was everywhere. Headlines, social media, even national outlets picking it up. My father's picture flashed across every screen, his smug smile replaced with mugshots. Grandma watched in stunned silence. "He did this to himself," she whispered. I nodded slowly. "I didn't have to destroy him." He handed me the match and the gasoline. That night, I sat by the window watching rain streak the glass. Joshua came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my shoulders. "It's finally over," he said softly. I wanted to believe that. But deep down, I knew my parents. I knew pride that deep didn't die quietly. And as lightning flashed outside, I saw a figure standing near the edge of the street, motionless, just watching the house. When I blinked, they were gone. The morning after the arrest felt unreal. Rain tapped softly against the kitchen windows while the TV murmured in the background. Joshua sat at the table scrolling through headlines. Every one of them carried my father's name. Local businessman Stephen Miller under investigation for misuse of family trust funds. Community shocked as philanthropic couple face financial scandal. I poured coffee, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. For years, I'd told myself Dad was just controlling, not cruel. I never imagined he'd actually steal from me. Grandma came into the kitchen, wearing her robe and slippers, eyes heavy with worry. "He's been hiding this for decades, sweetheart," she said softly. "You just never saw the books. What did he even take?" I whispered. Joshua turned his laptop around. "According to this article, almost $500,000 went missing from your childhood trust. He funneled it into his company, then used that money as collateral for other loans." I sank into the chair, the air leaving my lungs. "He used my future to fund his pride." Grandma sighed. "And now it's catching up to him." For the rest of the day, the phone rang nonstop. Reporters, old neighbors, even relatives from out of state. I ignored them all. I didn't want to defend myself anymore. The truth was finally doing that for me. But around noon, my mother called. "Vivian, please," she said, her voice breaking. "You need to help your father. He's going to lose everything." I clenched the phone tighter. "He already lost me, Mom. He thought he could fix things before you found out. By stealing." She went quiet. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uneven. "You've destroyed this family." "No," I said calmly. "He destroyed it the moment he decided money mattered more than love." I hung up before she could answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, staring at the misty Oregon sky. The air smelled like wet pine and regret. Joshua joined me with 2 mugs of tea. "You should try to rest," he said gently. "I keep thinking about when I was little," I murmured. "How he used to promise me college, a house, a future. And all that time, he was spending it on himself." Joshua placed a hand over mine. "You're still standing. That's what matters. I smiled faintly. Barely. 2 days later, Igor called. His tone was grim. Vivian, the police found more than just the missing trust money. Stephen's business records show he borrowed from other investors too, using fake assets. So he wasn't just stealing from me, I said slowly. He was stealing from everyone. Exactly. It's turning into a full-scale fraud case. I think the FBI is going to get involved. My stomach flipped. Oh my God. He'll probably face multiple charges, Igor continued. But Vivian, this could get ugly. Defense attorneys might try to drag you into it, say you knew or benefited. I didn't know anything, I said firmly. I know that, Igor said. But public opinion can twist. Just be ready. The next morning, news vans lined the street outside my parents' house. Cameras flashed as officers carried out boxes of paperwork. I watched from my living room window, equal parts vindicated and hollow. Grandma stood beside me, shaking her head. It's strange, she said softly. You spend a lifetime thinking someone's strong, then one lie brings the whole house down. I nodded. I guess truth is the storm that tests the foundation. Joshua turned from the TV. There's going to be a court hearing next week. Preliminary charges. Do I have to go? Probably not, he said. But you might want to. Part of me wanted to hide, forever. The other part wanted to see my father finally face the consequences. When the day came, the courthouse in downtown Salem buzzed with reporters. I wore a simple gray dress and kept my head high. Grandma held my hand like I was 5 years old again. Inside, Dad looked smaller somehow. His once neat hair was uncombed, his suit wrinkled. Mom sat beside him, eyes red and puffy. When the judge read the charges, embezzlement, fraud, misuse of trust funds, Dad didn't look at anyone. Not even me. The prosecutor mentioned my name several times. The victim of the primary misappropriation. Each word cut deeper than I expected. When the hearing ended, I turned to leave, but Mom caught up to me in the hallway. Vivian, please. He's still your father. I stopped. A father protects. He doesn't steal, he doesn't lie, and he doesn't make his daughter beg for love. Her eyes filled with tears. You've changed. No, I said quietly. I just stopped pretending. I walked away, leaving her standing under the flickering fluorescent lights. The days that followed felt surreal. News outlets ran stories dissecting every detail of the Millers' fall from grace. The man who'd once lectured everyone about integrity was now the town's cautionary tale. But amid the noise, something else surfaced, old documents Igor's team had found during the audit. Letters from years ago, hidden in the trust legal files. One of them was addressed to me, written in my father's handwriting. The date, 3 days after my first miscarriage. Vivian, I don't know how to talk to you anymore. Everything I do seems to make you hate me. Maybe one day you'll see that I only ever wanted control because I was scared to lose you. I read it 3 times. The words didn't excuse anything, but for the first time, they showed fear, not arrogance. I set the letter down and whispered, You already lost me, Dad. That evening, I went for a walk alone. The sky had cleared, the sun dipping low over the Willamette River. Kids were riding bikes, the smell of barbecues drifting from nearby yards. For a brief moment, life felt normal again. My phone buzzed a new voicemail. I hesitated before pressing play. It was from Mom. Her voice was tired, almost defeated. Vivian, I just wanted you to know they're transferring your father to county jail tonight. He keeps saying he wants to talk to you. I don't expect you to go, but I think he knows it's over. I stood there on the bridge, the wind tugging at my hair. I didn't know if I wanted to see him again, but some part of me needed closure. 2 days later, I walked into the visitation room. The guard nodded me toward a small table. Dad was already there, hands folded, eyes sunken. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, You got what you wanted. I shook my head. No. What I wanted was a father who cared more about me than his reputation. He looked away. I didn't steal from you out of greed. I thought I could build something for all of us. At my expense, I said. He swallowed hard. I was wrong. For the first time, he sounded human, broken, not angry. I never meant to hurt you, he murmured. But you destroyed me. I stood up slowly. No, Dad. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped protecting the illusion. As I turned to leave, he called out, "Vivian, wait." I paused. "There's something you should know," he said. "The trust wasn't just yours. There's another account. In your name. Someone's been moving money again." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" He looked up at me, eyes hollow. "It's not me this time." I walked out of the jail into the cold Oregon air, his words echoing in my head. Another account? Another thief? When I reached the parking lot, my phone buzzed, a new notification from the bank. Unauthorized transfer, $50,000 withdrawn. My blood turned to ice. Joshua hadn't touched the funds. Grandma was with me all morning. So who had access? I opened the banking app, scrolling through the records, my pulse racing. And there it was, one familiar name I hadn't expected. Angela Miller. When I saw Angela's name on that bank statement, my heart stopped. For a moment, I thought it was a mistake, some old joint account we'd shared, a leftover from years ago. But no, the date was fresh. The withdrawal was real. $50,000. Gone. I called the bank immediately, my voice trembling. "This is Vivian Miller. I need to report an unauthorized transaction." The clerk on the other end hesitated. "Ma'am, the transfer was initiated from a linked user. Someone with shared access." "Shared?" I repeated. "There's no one else on that account but me." He paused. "According to our records, an authorized cosigner was added 2 years ago. A Miss Angela Miller." My breath caught in my throat. She added herself? "Looks that way, ma'am. Do you want us to freeze the account?" "Yes," I said, voice shaking. "Freeze everything. Now." When the call ended, I just sat there in the car, staring at the dashboard, trying to process what I'd heard. Angela, my baby sister, the only one who'd ever seemed to understand me growing up. The only person who used to sneak into my room at night to cry when our parents fought. How could she? Joshua's voice broke through my thoughts. "Viv, what's wrong?" I turned to him, numb. "It's Angela." He frowned. "What about her?" "She stole from me." He blinked. "What?" I handed him my phone, the transaction still open on the screen. He scrolled, his jaw tightening. 50,000? How? She had access. Somehow she made herself a cosigner. Probably when Dad still had control of the trust. Joshua exhaled slowly. "This family, man. Every time you think the storm's over, another wave hits." I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying every memory of Angela in my head. The way she cried at my wedding, the way she held my hand after the first miscarriage, the way she used to say, "You're the strong one, Viv. I could never be like you." I thought she meant it. But maybe she just learned to say the right words while quietly taking what she wanted. The next morning, I called Igor again. "Angela," he repeated, clearly surprised. "You're sure?" "She's the only one who could have had access. The account's been compromised." He sighed. "All right, I'll open an investigation. But Vivian, prepare yourself. This could turn ugly. Family fraud cases are the messiest kind." I nodded. "I'm already living messy." That afternoon, I drove to Angela's apartment on the other side of Salem. The building looked the same as always, old bricks, flower boxes in the windows, the faint sound of pop music drifting from somewhere upstairs. When she opened the door, she looked startled. "Vivian, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk," I said, pushing past her into the living room. She followed, clutching her robe. "About what?" I turned to face her. "Don't play dumb. You know exactly what." Her eyes flicked away. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You took money from my account," I said flatly. $50,000. She froze. For a moment, guilt flashed across her face, but then her expression hardened. "You think you're the only one who deserves something? Dad promised me part of that money too." My chest tightened. "Promised you?" "Angela, that was my trust. For my medical bills. My future. Everything I lost." She crossed her arms. "You already got enough. The house. The car. Everyone feels sorry for you. What about me?" I stared at her, completely speechless. "You're serious?" Her voice cracked. "You think this has been easy for me? Watching you turn everyone against Mom and Dad. Watching you play the victim while the rest of you stole from me?" I cut in sharply. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't understand. Dad said he'd make it right. He said, Dad's in jail, Angela. I shouted. And you're out here continuing his mess? For a second, she looked like she wanted to argue. Then her lip trembled. I just wanted a way out. He told me the money was clean. He said you'd never miss it. I felt my stomach drop. He told you to do it? Her silence was the answer. I left without another word. The rain had started again, steady and cold. By the time I got home, I could barely see through my tears. Joshua met me at the door, eyes full of worry. Vivian, what happened? She admitted it, I whispered. She said Dad told her to. Joshua clenched his fists. Unbelievable. He's still pulling strings from a jail cell. Grandma came out from the kitchen, her face pale. Oh, sweetheart. I sank into her arms. Why does it hurt so much? I thought I was done being disappointed. She stroked my hair gently. Because you still love them. That's what makes you human. The next morning, Igor called with news. We've confirmed Angela's activity. The signature on the authorization form was your father's. She used it to get cosigner access while the trust was still under his control. My heart sank. So she'll be charged too? If she doesn't cooperate, yes, Igor said. But if she testifies against your father, it might lessen her sentence. I closed my eyes. He's dragged her down with him. Joshua shook his head. No, Viv. She chose to follow him. Maybe he was right, but it didn't make it any easier. That evening, my phone buzzed again. Angela's name flashed on the screen. For a long moment, I considered ignoring it. Then I answered. Her voice was quiet. I'm sorry. Are you? I asked. I didn't know he was lying to me too, she said. He said the money was just sitting there. He said you wouldn't notice. I swallowed hard. What did you use it for? She hesitated. To pay off his lawyer. He said it was the only way to keep him out of prison. I felt like the ground was slipping out from under me. So you stole from me to save him from the crimes he committed against me? She started crying. I just wanted it all to stop. There was a long silence. Then I said quietly, it's going to stop. But not the way you think. And I hung up. That night, I met Igor in his office again. He looked at me over his glasses. Are you sure you want to press charges against your sister? I nodded slowly. Yes, not because I hate her, but because she needs to face the truth, just like he does. He gave a small, approving nod. Understood. I'll handle the paperwork. As I left his office, I felt strangely calm. For the first time, my anger wasn't wild. It was clear, steady almost, peaceful. Sometimes closure doesn't come from forgiveness. It comes from finally drawing a line. A week later, Angela was summoned for questioning. The story hit the news again. Miller family scandal deepens as second daughter implicated in fraud case. Reporters showed up outside our house. Joshua handled most of them, but one question still echoed in my mind. Do you think your family can ever heal from this? I didn't know the answer. Maybe healing wasn't possible. Maybe survival was enough. But that night, as I sat on the porch watching the lights of Salem glitter across the hills, my phone buzzed once more. It was an email from an unknown sender. No subject line, just one sentence. You think you've won, but you haven't even found the real secret yet. Attached was a single image, a scanned document stamped confidential, and right at the top in bold letters. The Miller Foundation, secondary beneficiary, Vivian Miller. My stomach twisted. The Miller Foundation was Dad's charity, the one everyone thought was legitimate. But why was I listed as a beneficiary? And what secret was I still missing? I must have read that email a dozen times, staring at the screen until the words blurred. You think you've won, but you haven't even found the real secret yet. Attached beneath it, a confidential document stamped with my father's foundation logo. The Miller Foundation. I remembered it from years ago. The fancy dinners, the smiling photos in newspapers, Dad shaking hands with local politicians. He always called it his legacy. But seeing my name on that file as a secondary beneficiary made my skin crawl. Joshua leaned over my shoulder. Vivian, what is this? I don't know, I said, my voice trembling. But whoever sent it wants me to find out. He frowned. The email address looks like a burner. No name, no reply option. I opened the document again. The foundation's accounts were listed, millions of dollars in charitable contributions. But as I scrolled, something didn't add up. The same donors appeared over and over. Some had fake-looking names. Others were shell companies. It was a money loop. Dad had been laundering funds through his own charity. And somehow, I'd been written in as the one who'd inherit it all. I stood up, heart pounding. He didn't just steal from me. He made me part of it. The next morning, I called Igor. He answered on the first ring. "Vivian, I need you to look into the Miller Foundation," I said quickly. "There's something wrong with it. My name's on one of the beneficiary files." There was a pause. "That's impossible. That charity's under separate oversight. It's not connected to the trust." "I'm telling you, it's there," I insisted. "I have the document." "Forward it to me," he said. 10 minutes later, he called back, his tone sharper now. "Where did you get this?" "Someone emailed it to me." "Who?" "I don't know," I said. "No name. Just a warning." He exhaled heavily. "Vivian, this file isn't just incriminating, it's explosive. If it's real, your father was moving money through charitable fronts. And if your name's on it, you could get dragged into this investigation as a participant." My stomach flipped. But I didn't know. I never touched a dime. "I believe you," Igor said. "But the feds won't care until it's proven. You need to stay quiet about this for now. Let me verify it." I hung up and sank onto the couch, shaking. Joshua sat beside me, rubbing my shoulder. "You think your dad's trying to frame you?" "I don't know," I whispered. "But it feels like he planned this. Like he knew this would happen." Grandma, who'd been quietly knitting across the room, looked up. "That man built his life on secrets, Vivian. You shine a light on one, and 10 more crawl out of the shadows." I gave a bitter laugh. "Then I'll light the whole damn house." 3 days later, Igor called again. "You were right," he said. "The document's authentic. The foundation's been laundering money for years." My heart skipped. And my name? Added 2 months before the arrests. A forged signature, yours. They used an old scan of your ID from the trust paperwork. I felt sick. So he was setting me up. "Looks that way," Igor said. "He must have known his empire was collapsing. If the charity went down, the government would need a fall person. You, as the secondary beneficiary, would look perfect." I clenched my fists. He was never going to take the blame alone. "Vivian," Igor said carefully, "this is serious. If I hadn't seen that file myself, you could have been facing federal charges. Whoever sent you that email probably saved you." I swallowed hard. "But who would do that?" "Maybe someone on the inside," he said. "Someone who wants him exposed." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Someone out there knew my father's secrets. Someone watching from the shadows, feeding me just enough to keep the truth alive. I went through every memory, every old contact, every person who'd ever worked for Dad. And then it hit me. Renee, the journalist from Portland. She'd said she was digging deeper, that her editor wanted follow-ups. I called her immediately. "Renee, did you send me that email?" There was a pause. "Email? No, why?" I hesitated. "Because it contained a file about my father's foundation." Her voice sharpened. "Vivian, listen carefully. I've been investigating that foundation for months. Someone's been leaking documents to multiple sources, not just you. But if you've got something new, you need to send it to me now." I froze. "You're saying this goes beyond my family?" "Oh, it's way beyond," she said grimly. "Your father wasn't just moving money. He was laundering for politicians and investors. It's a full-blown racket." My hands went cold. "You're kidding." "I wish I was," she said. "And Vivian, if your name's on any of those documents, you're in danger. Whoever's still running this doesn't want loose ends." That night, the fear hit me harder than ever. Joshua tried to reassure me, but I could see the worry in his eyes. "Viv, this isn't just a family scandal anymore. This is organized crime territory." "I know," I whispered. "But if I back down now, everything I've done, all the pain, the losses, it'll mean nothing." He nodded slowly. "Then we do this smart. We collect proof. We stay ahead." 2 days later, Igor arranged a private meeting with a federal investigator in Portland. I drove there with Joshua, my stomach in knots. The agent, a stern woman named Agent Keller, listened as Igor explained everything. My father's fraud, the trust, the forged beneficiary form. When we finished, she leaned forward. Ms. Miller, do you still have the original email? Yes, I said. I saved everything. Good, she said. Because that file came from inside the foundation's internal servers. Someone with access is trying to expose the rest. We're already tracking similar leaks. I frowned. Do you know who? She shook her head. Not yet. But whoever it is, they're risking a lot to help you. Joshua asked, what happens now? Keller met my eyes. Now, Ms. Miller, you decide how far you're willing to go. If we open a full investigation using your evidence, this won't stay quiet. The public will see everything, every account, every connection, every lie. I thought about my parents, my sister, the years of silence and control. And then I nodded. Do it, I said. Expose everything. The next week was chaos. News broke that the Miller Foundation was under federal investigation. The headlines were relentless. Charity scandal tied to imprisoned Oregon businessman. Sources say insider tip came from daughter of accused. Mom called again, sobbing this time. Vivian, please stop. You're destroying us. I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm saving what's left of the truth. You don't understand, she cried. If this goes public, we'll lose everything. I closed my eyes. You already did. And I hung up. A week later, Renee called me again. I don't know how to say this, she said carefully, but someone broke into our newsroom last night. They stole hard drives, ones that had your father's case files. My blood ran cold. What? Don't panic, she said. The feds already have copies. But whoever's behind this is getting desperate. I swallowed. Do they know where I live? Vivian, they might. That night, I checked every lock, every window, every shadow. Joshua kept the lights on while I sat on the couch clutching my phone. But then, just after midnight, it buzzed again. Another email. Same address. No message this time. Just another attachment. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a single photo, grainy, dark. A man standing in what looked like a storage unit. His face barely visible. But I knew that posture anywhere. That slouch, that hand gesture. My father, holding a flash drive. The caption read, "You think prison means powerless? Watch what comes next." I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering. Joshua leaned over. "Vivian, what is that?" I whispered, proof that he's still running it, even from behind bars. And then the lights flickered once, twice, before the entire house went black. The lights went out so suddenly that for a moment I thought my heart had stopped. 1 second, the hum of the refrigerator and the soft flicker of the living room lamp surrounded us. The next, silence. Pitch black. Joshua was on his feet, instantly. "Stay here," he whispered. "Don't," I said quickly. "What if?" He was already moving, his phone flashlight cutting a narrow beam through the dark hallway. I grabbed Grandma's hand. She was trembling. "It's probably just the storm," she whispered. But there was no storm. Outside, the night was still. Too still. And then I heard it, the faint crunch of footsteps on gravel outside. "Joshua," I hissed. He froze halfway to the circuit box. I heard it too. My pulse thundered in my ears. I reached for my phone, but before I could dial 911, the screen lit up with another email notification. Same address. No subject. I opened it. Only 5 words. "You should have stayed silent, Vivian." A shiver ran down my spine. Joshua came back, jaw tight. Powers cut manually. Someone tampered with the main switch. Grandma clutched her chest. "Oh, Lord." I swallowed hard. "We need to get out of here. Now." We hurried to the car, the night air thick with tension. The driveway stretched into darkness, the trees whispering overhead. Joshua started the engine, headlights flashing across the front yard, and that's when we saw it. A shadow darting behind the mailbox. "Go!" I shouted. He hit the gas, the tires skidding on the wet gravel. As we sped down the road, I glanced back, and there, standing in the glow of our porch light, was a figure in a hood, watching us disappear. We drove to Igor's office downtown. It was past midnight, but the building's night guard recognized me and let us in. I paced the floor while Joshua called the police. "Someone's threatening us," he said. "We've got emails, and now they've cut our power." The dispatcher promised to send a patrol to our house. Igor arrived minutes later, his hair tousled and his shirt half-buttoned. What happened? I handed him my phone. Another message. They know I've been talking. He read it, his expression grim. Vivian, this isn't just harassment. This is intimidation. Whoever's behind the foundation, your father's partners, they're trying to silence you. My hand shook. So he's still in control. Even from prison. Igor nodded. Most likely. If he's got hidden accounts or loyalists still outside, they'll act on his orders. Joshua slammed his fist against the wall. Then we go to the FBI again. Keller needs to see this. By morning, Agent Keller had set up an emergency meeting. She was waiting in a small office room, eyes sharp but calm. Good to see you're safe, she said. We traced the IP address from that email chain. It originated from a laptop registered under an alias connected to one of your father's former employees, an accountant named Mark Daly. I frowned. I remember him. He worked for Dad for years. Keller nodded. He disappeared 3 weeks before the first arrest. We think he's the leak, and possibly the person feeding you evidence. So he's on my side? Her expression darkened. We're not sure. The emails might have been warnings, or bait. Joshua leaned forward. Bait for what? To lure you into exposing yourself, she said. If you open the wrong file or meet the wrong contact, they can trace your device. Maybe even plan something illegal to discredit you. My chest tightened. So what do I do? Do nothing, Keller said firmly. Let us track him. You've done enough. For now. Stay low and let us handle this. I nodded, but I could feel the resistance bubbling in my gut. I'd been staying low my whole life, silent, obedient, scared. Not anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. The house felt colder now, quieter than before. Joshua was dozing on the couch, Grandma upstairs. I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through the old emails, studying every line. That's when I noticed it. One of the attachments had a hidden signature in the metadata. A location tag. Coordinates. I copied them into Google Maps. The pin dropped onto a small warehouse district on the outskirts of Salem. And then I saw the name. Miller Storage and Shipping. My father's old warehouse. The next morning, I drove there alone. I knew it was reckless, but curiosity burned hotter than fear. The building looked abandoned, rusted gates, peeling paint, a faded sign barely hanging by its bolts. But as I approached, I heard faint noise from inside. A humming. I slipped through a broken side door and froze. Rows of metal shelves stretched into darkness, each stacked with boxes labeled Foundation Archives. A single light glowed at the far end of the room. And under that light stood a man with a laptop. Mark? I said softly. He turned, startled. For a moment, I saw recognition in his eyes. Then fear. Vivian, he said quickly. You shouldn't be here. I got your emails, I said. Why are you helping me? He looked around nervously. I'm not helping you. I'm trying to survive. What do you mean? He sighed. Your father's still running everything through hidden accounts, even from prison. The Foundation wasn't his only scheme. There's another layer, an offshore one, and he's got people willing to kill to protect it. My stomach nodded. Why tell me? Because your name's still on those files, he said. If this blows up, you'll go down too. Then help me clear it. I can't, he whispered. They're watching. They already know I talked. Before I could ask more, a noise echoed from behind us, a metal door slamming open. Mark's eyes widened. Run. I turned toward the sound and saw 2 figures in black step into the light. They weren't cops. They were holding guns. I bolted for the side exit as Mark shouted something I couldn't make out. A gunshot cracked through the air, the sound ricocheting off the walls. I ducked behind a crate, heart hammering. Mark's voice screamed, then cut off. Mark, I yelled. No answer. Footsteps echoed closer. I crawled toward the back door, forcing it open with shaking hands, stumbling into the cold daylight. My car was parked just a few yards away. Another shot rang out, hitting the metal beside me. I ducked low, sprinting across the gravel, and jumped into the driver's seat. The tires squealed as I sped away, tears blurring my vision. In the rearview mirror, I saw the warehouse shrinking behind me, its doors swinging open, one dark figure watching me leave. When I finally got home, I could barely speak. Joshua grabbed me as soon as I stepped inside. Vivian, what happened? I told him everything, the warehouse, Mark, the gunshots. He stared at me, pale. Jesus, Viv, you could have been killed. I had to know, I whispered. And now I do. My father isn't done. He's still pulling every string he can. Grandma pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Oh, sweetheart. I took her hand. I'm going to end this. For good. Joshua shook his head. How? I looked at him, fire in my eyes. By taking everything he built and burning it down with the truth. But even as I said it, my phone buzzed again. A new message. From the same anonymous address. You shouldn't have gone there, Vivian. Now it's too late. Attached was a photo of Mark, face down on the warehouse floor. Dead. I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. Mark's body was twisted awkwardly on the cold concrete floor, a dark stain spreading beneath him. The image was grainy, but the message was clear. This wasn't a warning anymore. It was a declaration. They'd killed him. Joshua took the phone from my shaking hand. We're sending this to Keller. Now. I nodded numbly. My mind was somewhere else, stuck in that warehouse, in that echo of his last words. They already know I talked. I dragged him into this. He died trying to protect me. And now they were coming for me next. Agent Keller arrived at our house 2 hours later with a team of agents. She moved quickly, professional but visibly tense. We found Mark Daly's car abandoned near the river, she said grimly. No sign of him yet, but this photo is enough to open a homicide investigation. Grandma sat in silence, clutching her rosary. Joshua paced. I swallowed hard. Who sent the picture? We're tracing it, Keller said. But this is sophisticated. Whoever's behind it knows how to cover their tracks. Then what do I do? You stay under federal protection for now, she said. We'll assign you temporary security and monitor your communications. I shook my head. No, that's what they expect. They want me scared and hidden. I'm not giving them that satisfaction. Keller looked at me with that mix of pity and frustration I'd grown used to. Vivian, this isn't about pride. This is about survival. Exactly, I said quietly. And I've spent my whole life surviving the people who were supposed to love me. I'm done running. When the agents finally left, Joshua turned to me. What are you thinking? I took a deep breath. I'm thinking it's time to end this my way. The truth can't stay buried anymore. He frowned. You mean go public? Yes. If I go silent, they control the story. If I speak, they lose that power. He hesitated. That's risky, Viv. So is living in fear, I said. I called Renee the next morning. She answered on the first ring. Vivian, I heard about Mark. I'm so sorry. I'm going public, I said bluntly. I want to tell everything on record with evidence. There was a pause. Are you sure? This could make you the prime target. I already am, I said. But if I don't speak, I'll just be another name they erase. Renee's voice softened. Then let's do it right. Come to Portland tomorrow. We'll film an exclusive. You'll have full editorial control. Deal, I said. That night, I barely slept. The house was too quiet, the silence pressing on me like a weight. Every creak made me jump. Joshua stayed up with me, scrolling through security feeds Keller's team had installed. Viv, he said suddenly, you ever think this might be bigger than your dad? I mean, he's in prison. Maybe someone else took over. I nodded slowly. It's possible. But whoever it is, they're using his name to keep the machine running. And I'm going to stop it. He squeezed my hand. Then we'll stop it together. The next morning, we drove to Portland. Renee met us at the studio, a small independent newsroom, lights and cameras already set up. Ready, she asked. I nodded, though my stomach churned. As the cameras rolled, she asked softly, Vivian, why are you here today? I took a breath, because silence killed too many people already. My father built his empire on lies, money laundering, and intimidation. He stole from his own family, from charities, from anyone he could use. And when I tried to stop him, he tried to destroy me. Renee nodded, eyes steady. And what do you want to happen now? I looked straight into the camera. I want the world to see who he really is. I want every victim of his schemes to know they weren't crazy. And I want his empire to crumble, brick by brick. For the first time in months, I felt power return to my voice. When we finished, Renee exhaled. That was incredible. This will shake the city. By the time we got home that evening, the interview was already trending online. Hashtag Vivian Miller Speaks. Comments poured in. Some called me brave. Others called me a liar. But the one that froze my blood was from an anonymous account. You just signed your own death certificate. Joshua saw it, too. Ignore it, he said. They're bluffing. But I couldn't shake the chill that crawled up my spine. 2 nights later, I woke to the sound of tires on gravel. Not a car passing. Too slow, too deliberate. I peered out the window. A black SUV was parked at the edge of the driveway. The headlights were off. Joshua, I whispered, shaking him awake. There's someone outside. He grabbed his phone, dialing Keller's direct line. Agent Keller, this is Joshua. We've got a vehicle outside the Miller property. No lights, no plates. She was there within 15 minutes, sirens slicing through the night. By the time her team reached the driveway, the SUV was gone. But left on the porch was a single envelope, sealed with red wax. Keller opened it with gloves. Inside was a single sheet of paper. You can't kill what's already dead. And beneath the note, a flash drive. At the FBI field office the next day, they plugged the drive into a secured computer. Dozens of encrypted files appeared, all labeled with years and account numbers. Keller glanced at me. Vivian, this could be the offshore network Mark was talking about. She opened one file. Rows of transactions filled the screen. Millions flowing through shell corporations, all tied to foreign accounts. At the bottom of each file, the same signature appeared. Stephen Miller. But one document made my heart stop. It wasn't signed by my father. It was signed by Abigail Miller, my sister. My mouth went dry. That's impossible. Abigail never worked for him. Keller looked grim. According to these records, she's been managing the offshore branch for over a year. Most of the transactions after his arrest came from her authorization codes. Joshua whispered, "Your sister's running the network." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. No, she wouldn't. But deep down I knew. Abigail always worshipped Dad. She called him a genius. She'd blamed me for ruining the family. And now she'd picked up where he left off. That night, I sat in the dark, the glow of my laptop reflecting in my eyes. My inbox pinged again. A new email from an unknown address. I told you to stay silent, sis. Now I'll finish what Dad started. Attached was a photo of me at the interview, zoomed in from across the street. My hands went cold. Joshua came running when he saw my face. Vivian, what's wrong? I turned the screen toward him, my voice barely a whisper. She's not just running it. He frowned. Who? Abigail, I said. She's hunting me. When I saw my sister's name on that email, everything inside me froze. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My baby sister, the girl who used to braid my hair, who cried when I left for college, was now threatening my life. Joshua's hand tightened on my shoulder. Vivian, she's just trying to scare you. I shook my head. No, Abigail never bluffs. Memories flooded back. Our father's favorite daughter, the one who could do no wrong. I used to think she was innocent, but maybe that was the biggest lie of all. The next morning, Agent Keller met me at the FBI field office again. Her face was drawn, exhaustion etched into her eyes. We've confirmed the signature, she said. Abigail Miller's been wiring funds through encrypted accounts linked to the Miller Foundation's shell corporations. Your father may have started it, but she's keeping it alive. I clenched my jaw. She's working for him. Possibly, Keller said. We've seen communication logs from the prison. Abigail's been visiting your father every week for the past 3 months. Joshua let out a low whistle. That's coordination. Keller nodded. She's the new front. The public thinks the empire fell apart, but behind the scenes, she's rebuilding it under a new name. What name? I asked. Keller handed me a folder. On the cover was a corporate logo I hadn't seen before. Silverline Ventures. My stomach dropped. That's Abigail's company. She told everyone it was a startup. Startup my ass, Keller muttered. It's the same network, just cleaner. She's transferring assets, hiding money offshore, and even recruiting some of your father's old investors back into the fold. I stared at the file. rage burning through my chest. She's not just continuing his legacy. She's trying to surpass him. Keller's tone softened. Vivian, if we can get her talking, get her to admit any of this, we can shut it down. But she's careful. We need leverage. I looked up slowly. Then I'll give her a reason to talk. That evening, I messaged Abigail for the first time in months. We need to talk. Abigail, I was wondering when you'd finally stop hiding. You killed Mark. Abigail, he was a liability. You're next if you keep digging. You don't scare me, Abby. But maybe Dad will want to know what you've been doing with his money. There was a long pause. Then, Abigail, meet me. Tomorrow. Noon. The old beach house. My chest tightened. That beach house had been our family summer home for years. The place where we'd once been happy. It was where Mom taught us to swim. Where Dad first taught me to never show weakness. And now, it was where one of us might die. Joshua begged me not to go. Viv, it's a trap. I know, I said. But it's one she doesn't realize I'm ready for. Keller equipped me with a wire and a GPS tracker. Stay calm, she said. We'll be nearby. But we need her to incriminate herself. Don't provoke her unless it's safe. I gave a small, bitter smile. She's the one who'll provoke me. The next day, the Oregon coast was gray and windy. The beach house sat at the edge of the dunes, the same white paint peeling, the porch creaking under my steps. I pushed the door open slowly. Inside, it smelled like salt and dust and old memories. And there she was. Abigail stood by the window, her blonde hair tied neatly back, her expression calm, almost too calm. You look tired, Viv, she said, her voice cool and sharp. Fighting ghosts must be exhausting. Only when they look like family, I said quietly. She smiled faintly. Still dramatic, I see. I stepped closer. Why, Abby? Why would you do this? She tilted her head. Because someone had to. Dad built an empire. And you burned it down because of your little morality crusade. You humiliated him. You humiliated us. I stared at her. He let me bleed alone, Abby. He let me lose everything. And you call that an empire? Her eyes flashed. You were always weak. That's why he never trusted you. I laughed bitterly. No, he didn't trust me because I wasn't corrupt enough to be useful. For a moment, something cracked in her mask. Then she smiled again. You don't get it, do you? This isn't about money anymore. It's about control. About legacy. His legacy is rot, I snapped. And you're just the next infected branch. She shrugged. Maybe. But rot feeds new growth. She moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. You know he's proud of me. Even from that cell, he still believes I'll finish what he started. Then tell him this, I said softly. I'm the one ending it. Abigail's eyes narrowed. You think you can beat me? I already did, I said, meeting her gaze. You walked right into this. She frowned, then her phone buzzed. She glanced down, confusion flickering across her face. I stepped back just as Keller's team burst through the door. Abigail Miller, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction of justice, Keller said, gun drawn. Abigail's shock morphed into fury. You set me up, she screamed. I met her glare, my voice shaking but steady. No, Abby. You set yourself up the moment you chose him over me. The agents cuffed her as she thrashed and shouted. You'll regret this, Vivian. You don't know what he's still capable of. Her words echoed through the old beach house as they dragged her away. Back at the station, Keller pulled me aside. We've secured her laptop and files. It's all there, offshore accounts, transaction records, emails with Steven. You just dismantled the entire Miller network. I let out a shaky laugh, relief and grief twisting inside me. It's over. For them, yes, Keller said. But for you, the world's going to see every detail. It'll be public soon. I can handle that, I said quietly. I just want peace. But as I walked out into the sunlight, my phone buzzed again. A new message, from an address I hadn't seen before. You think you won, Vivian? The game's not over. Attached was a live video feed, grainy and flickering. It showed a prison cell. My father's cell. And there he was, Stephen Miller, smiling straight into the camera. He leaned forward, his voice low and cold. You always were my favorite student, sweetheart. Let's see if you learned how to finish what you started. The screen went black. The video ended, but his voice stayed with me, that smug, controlled calm that used to freeze me when I was a child. You always were my favorite student, sweetheart. For years, I wanted to believe he loved me, that somewhere beneath the cruelty there was a father who cared. But now, watching him smirk from that concrete cell, I understood what he really meant. I wasn't his daughter. I was his experiment. Joshua took the phone from my trembling hands. Vivian, we need to take this to Keller now. I know, I whispered, forcing my breath to steady. But not yet. What do you mean? I looked at him, fire building in my chest. He's not taunting me for fun. He's setting something up. And I need to see it before it hurts anyone else. By morning, I was back at the FBI office. Keller played the video again on the big screen, her jaw tight. This is a live feed, she said. Someone inside the prison is helping him communicate. We're checking internal networks, but this is beyond standard hacking. So he's still orchestrating things, Joshua said. Keller nodded grimly. He's manipulating his daughter's arrest to build sympathy, painting himself as the victim of government persecution. His supporters are already spreading propaganda online. I clenched my fists. He's turning it into a redemption narrative. Exactly, Keller said. And it's working. We're seeing donations flowing into a new legal defense fund, one set up under a fake nonprofit. My heart sank. He's laundering again, even from inside. Keller's eyes met mine. We can't just chase his shadows anymore. We need a direct confession. I exhaled slowly. Then let me talk to him. She blinked. You're joking. I'm the one he wants, I said. He'll talk to me if no one else can. You want a confession? I'll get it. 2 days later, I walked through the gates of Oregon State Penitentiary, every step echoing like thunder in my chest. The warden led me through cold corridors until we reached the visitation room. He sat there already, older, thinner, but still radiating control. His suit replaced by an orange jumpsuit, yet his posture was perfect. Vivian, he said, smiling faintly. So nice of you to visit your old man. I sat down across from him. Cut the act. You're orchestrating everything from in here. He tilted his head. Such accusations. I'm merely serving my sentence, reflecting on my mistakes. Don't waste my time, I said sharply. Abigail's in custody. The foundation's gone. The world knows what you did. He chuckled softly. Ah, but do they? You see, Vivian, the truth is just a matter of who tells it loudest. And I taught you how to speak, didn't I? I stared at him, disgust curling in my gut. You're a monster. No, he said calmly. I'm a creator. You're the monster, my dear. You've destroyed your family, our legacy, your sister's life. And for what? To feel righteous. I leaned forward, my voice low. You call it destruction. I call it justice. He smiled again, that awful, knowing smile. Tell me, when you look in the mirror, do you really think you're any different from me? You used manipulation to take everything from us. You used fear, public humiliation, power. Sound familiar? For a moment, his words hit too close. My pulse faltered. But then I remembered Mark. Grandma. The hospital. That text message. Can't this wait? We're busy. The rage steadied me. No, I said quietly. The difference is I did it to stop you. You did it to feed yourself. He laughed low and chilling. And yet here you are, right where I wanted you. Talking to me. Giving me your time. Your story still revolves around me. I stood up slowly. Not anymore. His smile faltered just slightly. I pressed the recorder hidden in my sleeve. You just admitted it, Stephen. You wanted this. You orchestrated it. You're still trying to control the narrative. His eyes narrowed. You think anyone will believe you? They don't need to, I said. You just confessed on a federal wire. By the time I walked out of that prison, my hands were shaking, but not from fear. Keller met me outside, earbuds still in from monitoring the line. You did it, she said. We've got enough to extend his sentence indefinitely. I looked back at the gray walls behind me. Then it's finally over. But it wasn't. Not completely. A week later, Abigail's plea deal made headlines. She'd agreed to testify against their father in exchange for a reduced sentence. Her statement confirmed everything. The laundering, the intimidation, even the attempted cover-up of Mark's death. When the media asked me for a comment, I said only one thing. The truth doesn't need revenge. It just needs light. The word spread everywhere. For the first time in my life, people weren't looking at me as Stephen Miller's daughter. They were seeing me, a survivor, not a shadow. Still, I went to Grandma's one last time before the sentencing. She was sitting on the porch, a blanket over her knees, the ocean breeze rustling her hair. "Is it really done, honey?" she asked softly. I nodded. "He's going away for good. And Abby, she's finally facing the truth." She smiled sadly. Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones we have to let go of to find peace. I sat beside her, tears stinging my eyes. "I just wish it didn't have to end this way." She took my hand. "Child, endings are just beginnings in disguise." A month later, the court sentenced my father to life without parole. The moment the gavel struck, I felt something inside me loosen. The invisible chain I'd been dragging since childhood. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, microphones flashing. One of them asked, "Vivian, do you have any final words for your father?" I looked straight into the cameras, the Oregon wind whipping through my hair. "Yes," I said. "I forgive him. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means I'm free." That night, Joshua and I stood on the same beach where it all began. The one near the old house where Abigail had been arrested. The tide rolled in gently, the sky a mix of pink and gold. Joshua wrapped his arms around me. "You did it," he said softly. I nodded. "No, we did it." Grandma, Igor, Keller, everyone who stood up when he wanted us silent. He smiled. "So what now?" I watched the horizon, a slow peace settling in my chest. Now I live, really live. No more ghosts, no more Miller Empire. Just me. He kissed my forehead. "That sounds perfect." When we got home later that night, I opened my laptop one last time. My inbox was full of messages from strangers, survivors of manipulation, greed, and family abuse. They thanked me for speaking out. One message, though, stood out. "You don't know me, but your story gave me courage to leave my own father's company. Thank you for showing that some legacies aren't worth keeping." I smiled through my tears. Maybe that was the real revenge, not destroying him, but ending the cycle he created. And so, when I look back now on the hospital, the betrayals, the papers, the endless fear, I realize something. Revenge didn't save me. The truth did. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to fight back. It's to walk away knowing they can never touch you again.